Hi, I'm Monsignor Walter Nolan. Welcome to the Catholic Corner. My guest today is a writer and retreat facilitator for the Rite of Christian Initiation in our own parish, St. Aloysius Church in Jackson, New Jersey. Barbara Hosbach holds a BA in psychology from Keene University. She's written many articles in St. Anthony Messenger, The Ligurian, My Daily Visitor, and on the web at Today's Catholic Woman. Barbara's also written a book, which will be the topic of our conversation today. The title of her book, Fools, Liars, Cheaters, and Other Bible Heroes. Welcome, Barbara, to the Catholic Corner.
Thank you so much for having me,
It's
Monsignor.
an interesting title that you have here. Fools, Liars, Cheaters, and other heroes.
Actually, my publisher came up with the title. They didn't like the title that I had chosen.
And what was your title?
God's Guest List.
Oh.
My point was we're all on it.
Maybe it could be a subtitle, or maybe that could be your next book. Who knows, I guess, huh? But listen, that is an interesting title. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself first and your background?
Well, I got involved in the RCIA program when I was at St. Francis in Metuchen. And I was first a sponsor and then a catechist for about 10 or 12 years. Then my husband and I moved to Pennsylvania for a year, and when we came back, we relocated to Jackson. That was about 5 years ago, and so I got involved with Jen Slamus Perry, is the pastoral associate at St. Al's, and that's how I got involved working with RCIA there.
Marvelous people at St. Al's.
Oh, they are.
I
They're
know some of them
terrific.
very, very well. And
It's great.
It is a great parish. So you're a retreat facilitator. What does that mean?
Whenever Jen asks me to, I present a retreat for the RCIA candidates and catechumens. For example, on Holy Saturday, when they're preparing to receive their sacraments in the morning, we'll have a retreat for them, and I'll present it so that they have an opportunity to reflect a little more deeply on what's going to happen that night.
Well, that's wonderful. That's very, very wonderful. So you've written a lot of articles in magazines, and how did you get into writing? You're a psychology major.
Well, I've loved writing since I learned to form letters on a page, but I never had the, self-confidence. When I got to high school, I was in the creative writing club, and I thought everybody else's work sounded better than mine. And I ended up having a 33-year career in social services. And then when I retired, I had a little more time on my hands, and I just felt impelled to pursue my writing.
Well, that's terrific. I didn't know you had 33 years in another career. Well, and do you write just Catholic writing, or do you write stories generally, or?
Primarily spiritual, inspirational pieces. I love reading the Bible, so I write a lot about biblical topics. But occasionally I'll write something else, rarely.
But it's interesting, you take a character out of the Bible and allow yourself to meditate on it and facilitate it and allow it to grow inside of you in your own imagination?
Yes, it's amazing. The people, when I read the Bible, these people come alive to me. I get so curious about them. What was it like for Leah? Her husband loved her sister, her kid's sister, better than her. How did that feel? And how about Hosea? He was a prophet, and God had prompted him to marry a prostitute who would be unfaithful. That's hard for anybody, but especially for a prophet. Who's going to take him seriously, when his wife is unfaithful to him? Even though he was mirroring God's love for us when we're unfaithful to God. What did it feel like for him? Why did Jesus pick a skeptic like Nathaniel to be one of the apostles? There's just so many things to think about when you read these stories.
And when you're talking about this, especially like the prophet Hosea, and I say, that we base our covenant to some degree. When I've given marriage talks to young people getting married and talk about their covenant, sometimes it's you relate it back to the prophet. And then sometimes I sit back myself and say, gosh, we're talking about a woman who was a prostitute, and yet we understand how God is using that to show how he can love us and share the great mercy of God in his own Hesed, which is a beautiful thing.
That's one of the things in the Bible. God uses all kinds of people. There's all kinds of variety of circumstances, personalities, people with different strengths and weaknesses. They're just like us.
Which is a good thing.
A very
It
good thing.
It allows us to say, okay, I can be in the caravan.
A lot of hope.
Yes, a lot of hope. Tell me, though, about your book, if you don't mind. Fools, Liars, Cheaters, and Other Bible Hearers. What's it all about?
Well, what it does is it explores the stories of 28 different biblical characters, and I purposely chose an equal number of men and women and an equal number from the Old Testament and the New Testament. And then I tried to pick people in as widely varied circumstances and stations in life as possible to show that range that God, He invites us all, no matter what our conditions, no matter what our personalities.
Well, you're certainly very fair in keeping it old and new, male and female. And
I like balance.
there you go. How did the idea come about in your book? Was it just something you've been kicking around for a long time?
Well, actually, I'm a member of a writers group, and it's not a Christian or Catholic writers group. We have people writing all genres in this group. We have people writing teen romance, horror stories, you name it. And I had written an article about one of the apostles, and I was reading it to my writing group. And one of the men in the group, who's not particularly religious, said, I would read the Bible if it was more down to earth like that. And that's what gave me the idea. Maybe I could present a book that would attract people and help them relate to the Bible, people who might not necessarily read the Bible on their own, to make it more relatable and personal.
And it does do that.
I hope so.
And I think we all need that. I certainly, even interesting homilies do the same thing. They kind of make it a story, and people love stories. And I think to be able to use your imagination, I mean, you're a facilitator and you do retreat work. It's a marvelous thing, I think, to be able to let people's imagination even look at the scriptures and let their own imagination run away in spiritual understanding or spiritual direction.
That's right, because the Bible isn't just remote. We don't read it theoretically. It's a living, breathing Word of God, and it has a lot to offer us right in the here and now. But we have to make it our own. We have to be able to identify with perhaps not the specific circumstances, but the feelings behind it, the motivations, and that's how it comes alive for us.
And when they said we'd like to give you a different title, how did you feel about that? Or did you fight for your own title, or did it make some sense, the title that they gave you?
I was a little disappointed, but I figured they're the professionals. This is my first book, and it's Franciscan media, so I trusted them, and I deferred to their judgment.
They're good people.
They
are good people. Does it relate to the rest of the book when you talk about, liars and cheaters and?
Absolutely, because the people that God used in the Bible, they weren't floating 2 feet off the ground with circles of light around their heads. They were very real men and women. Take, for example, Samuel. He's a very renowned prophet, but even he got it wrong. When he was sent to anoint the king, who would be the king to replace Saul, and he went to Jesse's family, he thought David's older brother might be the one because he was good looking. And God said, no, we don't look from outward appearances. We judge by the heart. So it's very comforting to realize that even someone who was dedicated to God from birth, Samuel, could get it wrong sometimes. These people had human flaws. They were human, just like
Now, is
us.
David in your book also?
No, David's not in the book, just Samuel.
So you're gonna have another book coming out.
Oh, I've got an idea percolating for another book, but
Sure.
I haven't had a chance
Because
to flesh that
David
out.
himself has a great story. But
Maybe
we'll
you'll
keep
write a
that.
story about David.
Well, I don't know. Maybe we'll do it together someday. You have some characters in the book and some characters are not in the book. How did you decide on which ones you'd like to put into your book?
I used characters, as I said before, that were in different circumstances, different social strata, what have you, to show the whole range of God's creativity. And I guess I picked people that I identify with that touched my heart in some way.
Now, do these, we're talking a little bit of time ago with some of these folks. What do you see how they relate to people today? I mean, is that the idea of the book? That someone today can say, okay, there was a liar or a cheater back then, and there's a liar and a cheater today?
Absolutely. I don't think human nature has changed much over the centuries. The question is still, are we going to make self the center, or are we going to be open to God's love and be concerned about other people? And whether you're running around in a toga or, in the desert, or you're in Madison Avenue, that's still the issue.
And that's a nice thing to realize, that people can see themselves in many different aspects, I think, of their lives, and yet understand that God can still touch them, and there's always conversion, and there's lots of different ways about our life.
Yeah, and actually what I did was, at the end of each chapter, I included questions that can be used for personal reflection or group discussion to help people relate that particular story in that chapter to their own personal lives. So how does it affect them? What does it have to do with them in the here and now?
Bob, what do you do when you facilitate a retreat, maybe, or I don't know if you do any spiritual direction for people, but when someone says to you, well, the Bible was written, thousands of years ago, can anything new be in the Bible? Can anything new touch us in our lives today?
Well, personally, I believe that the Bible is the written word of what God wanted to communicate with us. And like Jesus said, if you ask, you'll receive. And he said, I stand at the door and knock. So for people who are open to it, it's a treasure trove of wisdom and comfort and guidance. Think of the psalmists, for example. Psalms were written to praise and thank God, but they were also written in anger, in fear, in sorrow. Who hasn't felt those emotions? Absolutely, the Bible speaks to us today.
So everybody really should read the Bible?
Well, I can't speak for everybody. I can only speak for myself. I could tell you why I read the Bible, and it is because when I read it, I find comfort and guidance for my own personal life. Let me give you an example. You know the story of Jesus' encounter with the Samaritan woman. She comes to the well in the middle of the day when nobody else is around, and she has an encounter with Jesus, who asks her for a drink. And throughout their conversation, she is converted, and she goes to the townspeople and evangelizes the whole town, brings them back. It's about her conversion, but when I read the story, I like to think about the fact that Jesus was tired. He sat at the well. He sent the apostles into town to get the food or whatever supplies because he was tired. He rested. He asked the woman for a drink. He wasn't afraid to take care of his own needs. And that's a good message for a type A personality like me, because I like to get things done. And I think a lot of people, it's easier for them to be the giver than to be the recipient. I have MS, and sometimes the fatigue makes me have to just stop and rest. And this example Jesus gave us is very heartening to me. It's okay to listen to our own bodies. It's okay to take time for ourselves when we need it.
And it's okay to let someone else
Minister to us. Yes, there's a give and take. It's just like breathing. You have to breathe in and you have to give out. You don't want to take all the time, but you don't want to give all the time, because then your own well will be depleted. There's got to be a balance.
You find, Barbara, even in your psychology wing, so to speak, do you find that there are a lot of people that are givers, but it's like, that's okay, you don't have to do anything for me?
Right. I think it takes a certain amount of humility, which involves self-esteem. It almost sounds like they should be opposites, but they're not. They go together. To have the humility to say, I can accept help from somebody else. I don't always have to be the hero.
I think that's a great message. I probably put it in other terms sometimes when I think about it, that I can love, but I can be loved. And they really have to go together. I mean, you can't just have the one lopsided part of that.
You can't give what you don't have.
Yeah. So do you see, in our world today, do you see faith working in our world today? I mean, are you a person that reads the Bible and also reads the newspaper and puts the two together?
I absolutely think that faith is alive and well today. I mean, there's programs like this one, and maybe the word gets out through Bible study chat rooms or other social media or the contemporary music, the pop Christian songs may not sound like the traditional hymns, but the message is still the same. And there's people giving. I mean, Hurricane Sandy, people came out of the woodwork to help each other. And if that's not faith in action, I don't know what is.
You know, just recently there's been on TV and the newspapers a story of a policeman who bought some boots, I guess, for a
Yes.
homeless person.
I saw that.
And I just think that's marvelous. And in my mind, it's maybe somewhat like yourself, somebody had given me a gift a long time ago of Santa Claus kneeling down, kind of administering to the baby Jesus or saying a prayer with the baby Jesus. And I said to myself, you know, I related those two, thinking that because the policeman, at least the picture I saw, he was kind of like kneeling down. And I said, what a beautiful expression of someone who could maybe write a story, or someone who could make a poem, or maybe even just do some kind of a sculpture of something of that nature, just to show that, yeah, that's our faith. We're making it alive. It's our century. It's our time. It's our way of seeing, you know, just how God does come to those who allow it to happen.
And the beautiful thing is that people notice that and they appreciate it, because it's been on Facebook and
Sure.
on TV
Sure.
and whatever. And in this society, you might think it seems like we don't give credit to people that give of themselves in that way. But no, there's something about that inspires other people. This is a good thing to do.
And of course, the scripture comes to your mind. You know what you've done to the least of my brothers and sisters. You know, it's amazing. They say if you don't learn from the past, you're doomed to repeat it. Are we doing the same thing we did 2,000 years ago? How do you see our society compared to then? Have we grown? Have we really taken the message of Jesus or the scriptures and the stories of Scripture and allowed them to really impact us, do you think?
I think it goes back to what we were saying before. Human nature hasn't changed much, and although there's been technological advances, the choice remains the same. Are we going to use these to help other people, or are we going to, medical technology has advanced. We can heal people, we can alleviate suffering in ways we couldn't have dreamed of 2,000 years ago. But we also have technology that designs weapons of mass destruction. So although the materials at our disposal are different, it comes right back to human nature, and what are we going to do with the free will that God gave us?
Yeah, it just seems that, because I think of this all the time, Barbara, that there are so many things that are growth producing and I think spiritual effects in our lives. But at the same time, you can take something that can spiritually help us, can also take away our relationship with God, so to speak. Just even some of the technology we have today. We can communicate all over the world, and yet we can also show pictures that are pictures that debase human people, and some people use those and to find whatever they're looking for. It's amazing how we can still do that. So I think you're true. It's I would hope that we've grown, and I hope there's more spirituality. I hope there's more of an awareness that we are brothers and sisters. But there's also that time we struggle with that, or some people struggle with that.
And again, it's God gave us free will. And somebody said the best thing we can do with it is give it back to Him. Because on our own, sometimes we choose wisely and sometimes we don't.
I know. I did see another quote recently. It's something what you just said, that what we are is God's gift to us, and what we will become is our gift back to God, which is kind of, which is why I love you when someone like yourself takes your imagination and puts it into print, or allows yourself to think, so that others can also do the same thing. Probably in your book group, there's probably some who would say that's a marvelous idea. I can now take the scriptures and just think of how that story impacts me, or how I put myself into that story.
That's my hope.
Really, and that's meditation. That's Saint Ignatius certainly had the same idea, I think, of using our imagination to allow ourselves to feel right at home with the stories that are there, and and maybe even sometimes, at least I do this once in a while, kind of rewrite it. Say, how would it be if this happened, if that happened? And
Or just begin to ask the questions, why? What was it like? What might have happened? What might have been going on in Nathaniel's head when he was sitting under that tree and Jesus saw him,
you
Why
ever
did that
think this,
impress
the,
him
the,
so?
the one dimension that we don't have in the scriptures is like the sound of the voice or the look in the eye, because that's how we communicate an awful lot, don't we? We can raise our voice and not raise our voice, use the same words, but they come out differently, or the look on someone's face can be a healing look, or a look of puzzlement, or a look of mercy, or a look of kindness. That's always intrigued me, how we can kind of almost see the face of Jesus in some of the stories that he tells.
I like your point about using our imagination to put ourselves there and glean from it whatever God has in mind for us to glean from it.
So what's your hope that people are going to take the message from the book when they read it?
Well, it's two messages, and one is I am hoping that people will be able to relate to the Bible in a more personal way and see what it means to them in the here and now. And my other hope is that it will help people embrace their individuality, seeing the wide range of characters. I mean, you've got people like Esther, she was a queen, and then you've got someone like Tabitha, who all she did was stay home and sew clothes for poor people. You've got Gideon, who was a soldier, and then you've got Andrew, the apostle, and he just stayed in the background. You've got all kinds of people in all kinds of situations, just like us. So I hope that people who read the book will begin to embrace their own individuality and explore what God is inviting them to do in their circumstances here and now.
And Barbara, sometimes we, one person, and then another time we might be another person. In other words, could we be a combination of some of the heroes or some of the people that you wrote about?
Oh, absolutely. I think, hopefully people will be able to identify in some way with most, if not all, of the people that I've included in the book, and with the other people in the Bible.
And maybe we got to be careful that we don't, throw the story back into someone else and say, well, that's them, not me. It's nice to be able to say, where am I in these stories?
Well, that's what the questions are designed to
There
do.
you go.
Help you look at your own self.
That's terrific, Barbara. Tell me now, are there, I forget now, how many stories do you have in the book?
28.
28 stories. Are there some that you really like better than others? I mean, is there a couple of stories that you say, oh gosh, I can't wait for somebody to read this story?
I have a soft spot in my heart for Ananias. I think people will remember the story about Paul was on his way to Damascus to persecute Christians, and on the road he had an encounter with Christ and was struck blind and had a conversion experience. He ended up being led blind into Damascus. Ananias is the person that God said, Ananias, I want you to go to Straight Street and heal Paul of his blindness. And if you read the story in Acts and you read between the lines, basically what Ananias says is, Lord, are you sure you know what you're doing? I heard about this guy, Paul, and he came here to persecute us believers, and you want me to go and heal him? Are you sure that's a good idea? And God says, yes, I want you to do this because I have plans for Paul. Well, it took Ananias 3 days, but eventually he went and did what God wanted him to do, and he laid hands on Paul and healed him. And I love the fact that Ananias was hesitant and that he wasn't afraid to share with God his hesitancy and his second thoughts. And it took him a while, but eventually he did follow what he had been called to do. And I love that humanness about him. It gives me hope for the times I'm not so sure in a situation what I'm feeling prompted to do is, it may not make a whole lot of sense to my logical mind, but if I listen and I trust God, things do turn out the way they're supposed to. Not my plan, God's plan.
I love the way you put it, that we can have a dialogue with God. And I think more times we should do that. In times of our life, do I want to study at this university, or do I want to study this, or should I marry this person, or so that we really just put a notion of where is God in our life when we're making these decisions that are small or very large decisions in our lives.
And the other thing is, that freedom to be honest with God. I mean, if you can't tell the truth to God, who are you
Who
going
do
to
you
tell the truth to?
to?
and I think it's so easy to think, oh, we have to have some kind of pious. If we're talking to God, it has to be just right and holy, rather than, you know, telling it like it is. You know what, God, I'm scared, or I'm hurting, or I'm a little angry here, and you know, what's the deal with this? To be able to share from the heart with God.
And that's why I think you mentioned before the Psalms. You know, they're so important for us to understand that they're not just words, that they're actually emotions that somebody has put into a poem or a song, and even Christ himself used those. Whenever I think of him praying, I say to myself, you know, he prayed the Psalms. They were his prayers, and he would be the one who could maybe pray them for himself, with himself, but also thinking about us in his mind, that these are the prayers that he would like us to share, and to understand that the human emotion is a gift from God.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know? Tell me a little bit, has the writing of this book changed you?
Well, when I was growing up, my dad always used to say, no two snowflakes are alike and no two people are alike. And I personally have come to believe that our soul prints are just as unique and individual as our fingerprints. And so I've kind of adjusted to the years to the idea that I may not be like everybody else, and that's okay. But what I'm coming to lately, and I think writing this book is helping me to understand, is that everybody else doesn't have to be like me either. And I have a problem with that, especially when I'm driving. I would like other people on the road to drive the way I do, and they don't. So just coming to terms with, you know what, everybody's not like me, and it's okay. If everybody was like me, computers never would have been invented, and we would have no great singers in the world. So it's just fine that God created us all to be individuals. I just have an enhanced appreciation of that.
One of my favorite characters in the Old Testament is Tobias, and I was wondering if you thought of putting him into one of your books.
Actually, I thought about writing a book about Tobias, you know, just exclusively on that. He is fascinating, and what he went through.
Well, if you do, I hope you're going to let me know, because I want to read that. And I actually had named my dog after and called him Toby because of many reasons.
That's
Bless
a
you,
great
though,
name.
and keep up the tremendous work, Barbara. For more information about her book, please go to Amazon.com, and you'll be able to get the information you need. Bless you. Use your own imagination and allow yourself to love God. Thanks, Barbara. That was very nice.
Thank you.